Hello, folks. I'm back. Did you miss me? Aw, that's nice. But also, depending on your YouTube watching habits, I was just here moments ago, so let's just settle down. Okay? Alright, well, in those short few moments, I think I figured something out. Well, actually, I don't know if I so much figured it out as I just adapted an old school technique into Bitwig, but stick around and I'll show you just what I'm talking about. Okay, so we all know about the technique used to use a little pink noise to help thicken up a snare drum, whereby you take some pink noise and every time the snare drum hits, you get a little blurb, a little psh of snare of pink noise, and it thickens the snare. Okay, and I've taken that principle and I've applied it into the modern Bitwig times. But first, let me just make sure that you all know what I'm talking about with this old school method. Well, back in the day, before we had things like Bitwig, and before we could just take a snare drum and just duplicate it a million times, have each one of them a different snare drum sample, and layer the snares, and have a fat snare drum that way, just like pretty much everybody does nowadays, they had to be a little more creative. So they took pink noise and they EQ'd the pink noise to somewhat look like a snare drum, although and I've done that very vaguely. This is not a perfect snare drum looking EQ by any chance. And I've done that, EQ'd it, and I put it through an audio sidechain so that every time the snare hits, this amplitude goes up to 0, and then I've put it through a gate just to make sure that it's a little bit choppy, right? And so what you'll notice is every time the snare hits, you get a little shot of pink noise. So let me just play the snare drum without it, and I'll slowly bring this into taste, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So even just right around there, you can tell that it sounds like someone just added in another microphone to the bottom of the snare drum where the little straps are, and you get a bunch of that sizzle, okay? So right away you can tell how you could thicken up a snare drum using pink noise and just EQing in the different frequencies of that pink noise that you want to augment the snare drum. And so that's kind of the old school method of quote layering snares, or making them a little fatter after the fact, after the recording process. Okay, all right, so I've taken that principle and I've applied it here. So what I've done, I thought about that and I thought, well, what's to stop us from making an entire drum kit just out of pink noise? And the answer is nothing is stopping us from doing that. So I'll show you. Let's have a look at what I've done here. So I've got my kick, snare, and hat, okay, all on different tracks because I wanted them separated, okay? And on my pink noise here, I've loaded up an effects layer, and on the first effect, well, I should say that I load up effects layer so that the pink noise is going through both of these at the same time, okay? On the first effects layer, I have a resonator bank, and it's tuned to the A, right? So it's all just factors of 440 right there, okay? And I've put a note sidechain on the resonator bank. And on this note sidechain, I've got the kick drum, which is right there. So basically, every time this note sidechain picks up a note on this kick drum track, it's gonna jump up the selected frequencies that I've chosen on the resonator bank, okay? And I've just made that decision which frequencies to jump up based on what I think is most appropriate for a kick drum. And then I have another note sidechain here, which is using the snare as its input, which is this track. So every time it gets a note reading from this track, it's going to jump up all the other frequencies. And again, I just made that decision based on which of the frequencies sounded most like they were in the snare range, okay? And then the hi-hat, I added a different resonator bank because at this point I had run out of the frequency band, so I needed another resonator bank. So I put in another one in the effects layer. I put in a note sidechain on this resonator bank, and again, it's looking at the hat track for its input signal, and it's jumping up these two frequencies, okay? The only reason I did that and the only reason I have an effects layer is simply because I ran out of frequency bands on this resonator bank, and so I just added another one. Okay, and then you'll notice on all of these I have the attack set really low because it's a drum and you want it to hit, right? You want a hard hitting. I've turned the mix all the way up so that this way no sound from this pink noise will get through unless one of these is turned up, because all of these are obviously down in their natural state, meaning nothing is passing through this resonator bank until one of these goes up, right? Makes sense. Okay, so let's have a listen first of all just to the drum samples that I have. Yeah, so nothing crazy, not even that great of a sounding drum kit. But now, once I add it to this guy, let's have a listen. Well, let's have a listen to this on its own. So you can notice here that every time the kick drum hits, it brings these two and this one up, right? And because, again, the mix is set to 100%, none of that sound is getting through until these raise, which is what I wanted. And then of course with this guy for the snare drum, it's the opposite. It's the third, fifth, and sixth frequency that I've chosen in the A note harmonics. Okay, all right, so let's add them all together here. Right, pretty cool. So if you have a typical drum set in your track, you can add this in. You can tune it to the root note of your song. So say the song was written in A, and then you can have all these note side chains put in, and then just have it really low and blend it into taste, and then you're effectively tuning your entire drum kit to the A note. Okay, so that's a pretty powerful little exercise, and if nothing else, it's just interesting to see that in fact you can create an entire drum kit just from pink noise, which I thought was cool. Okay, all right, I hope that did something for you. Right now my darling woman is cooking something, and it smells like if the angel of hot peppers, of chili peppers, were to get out of the shower and descend from heaven and land right in front of my stove. Okay, so I'm gonna go eat that. All right, don't miss me until the next video. I'll be back soon, I promise, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. I would like that very much. And either way, have a great day, night, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you next time. Okay, kids, ciao.